Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on creating a zombie pit in Cubiverse. In this quick video we'll be going through just how to create the pit, how to spawn zombies, and then how to create a gun and kill a few zombies. So the first thing, if you're logging into Cubiverse for the first time, is you get your quality settings. For most people, high should be fine. If you're on a low-end machine or mobile, and then these two options are best. And if you have a very high-end graphics card, then feel free to set the ultra mode. Cubiverse is now loading us the tutorial map, and we're pretty much going to ignore the tutorial and just simply get into editing the game quickly. But the first thing we need to do is obviously log in, and in this case you're free to obviously play anonymously, but in order to actually save the world and be able to recall it, it's best to register and then log in. So out, and we'll okay, so let's go ahead and register. Right, so let's log in. First thing, you notice that we're inside our game world and we're inside the tutorial, and of course the tutorial pops up and it instructs you how to do some sample scripts and create some basic world editing. But in this case what we're going to do is we're going to actually just claim the world. So we're going to go up here and say, right, we want to claim this tutorial world for ourselves. If you look at your worlds, you'll see that at the minute there's nothing claimed. You don't own anything. So let's claim this world. And of course if we go in here, you'll see we have our world claimed. The interesting thing to note here is the URL that anybody can type to get straight into this world, and this is handy for sharing with your friends or your community. Okay, let's pick up our world hammer first of all. We press I on the keyboard to open the inventory. In this case, it's exactly what the tutorial is telling us. But the next step we're going to kind of ignore. You can see here it's asking us to make a lift, but we're just going to simply float over here until this message disappears. In future versions of Cubiverse, I plan to just allow you to exit from the tutorial, but for the moment that's so. To give a rough idea of the interface here, we have the usual quick keys, the A and D keys, and then the S key to go backwards. In terms of then moving up and down in the editor, well, that's Q to move up and E to move down. You can also hold down Shift to move slightly faster. So if I hold down Shift and W, you'll notice that we'll travel a wee bit faster, and likewise Shift and S to go backwards. This doesn't work with up and down because those keys are reserved for the browser. You'll get a save dialog and various other messages appearing. But the idea with the world editor is that you have the ability to pick things and to edit using the mouse as you would normally expect. But by holding down the Shift key at any point, we can then lock the display and move around the view. The only issue is that once you move off to the right hand side, for example, you have to let go of Shift, move the cursor back and continue back round again. Again, I may allow full mouse lock in the future, but for the moment this is how it all works. First things first, we have up here our editor, and in this editor you'll see that there's voxels, there's land, there's entities, and there's trigger zones. So at the moment we're simply going to look at voxels, and following tutorials will go into more detail on the operations of each of the parts. But again, along the top here we have the ability to play the world and obviously clear any changes. So the first thing we're going to do in the land is pretty much get rid of everything. So I'm just going to move out here so that you can see this in progress. So the first thing we're doing, as I said, was to clear out all the landscape, and that's to give us a blank canvas to start on to build our little box that we want to put our zombies in. This process does take around a minute, and that's just due to the processing that goes on behind the scenes when a lot of voxels are changed. So let's just let this complete. Once this process is over, you'll notice that at the very center of our world is a very small cube. This is just a reference point to let us know where the center is so that we can build in the center out rather than having to find out where our edge is and have difficulties once we try to extend out in that direction. Okay, so here's our little cube floating in the middle of the ocean, and this is the center of our world. And on this cube is where we're going to build our little box to hold our zombies. Let's click the voxel tool. And one thing you may notice that all the tools have 1, 2, 3, 4, so on attached to them. This allows you to press using the keyboard for quick changes. In this case, we can hit 2, 3, 4 to go through the various modes. In this instance, we want to press 1 or click on the add, and this allows us to add cubes. In this case, you can see I can add cubes just simply by clicking, and it's a fairly simple process. But what we want to do is create a much larger structure, and the way we do this is to increase the size of the edited cube. Again, we can press this to increase and this to decrease, or we can use 5 or 6 likewise. So I know where the center of my world is. I'm going to select the delete tool and simply just delete these cubes. We know we're roughly in the center. Then we're going to use the add, and because the editor works in 2 different modes, that is, it allows you to stick or snap to existing cubes or press freely. Because we have no cubes in the world, we have to press freely. So there we go, is our big cube, and as you may notice, it seems to be in front of us now, and that is actually true. If I snap this down, you'll see that what actually happened was it snapped it directly in front of us. That's not what we want. I'm just going to delete this cube. What we want to do is to place it on the ground, and we're going to use the ability to change the distance at which this selection cube appears, and we do that by holding down the control key and using the mouse wheel to move it further away. One thing you will also notice is that along the bottom we have the position here of the cube in space, and we can easily notice that as we push away with the mouse wheel or push up while holding down control, the cube descends onto the ground. You can see it's inside the water now. So let's take it up a wee bit, and let's make it a wee bit bigger. So we want a fairly big pit. Let's just move it up again using the mouse wheel just to get in the perfect position, and let's just stamp it down. But again, doesn't look particularly good. Wrong color. So let me actually change this, and I'm going to do the same process and just simply delete the incorrect entries. And without holding down control, I'm going to spin on the mouse wheel, and that allows me to move around and pick what type of texture to use. In this case, I want a rock-like texture, so I'm just going to spin around until I find a rock texture. Sand. Let's just go with that rock. Okay. Again, we're going to position it just below us, so it's just touching the water. And there we have a big cube. If you want, we can easily press the play button here and spawn on top of our cube. So we've created a big cube. Pressing the Q key allows you to get third person, which allows you to see your player standing on top of the cube. But there's not much use at the moment. It's simply a large solid cube. So press I again. I'm going to equip the editor. And this time I'm going to come up using Q, move back a bit, and then I'm going to eat some of the inner voxels or cubes away. So I'm going to reduce the size of the selection. So I'm going to stamp it down. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go over the top and roughly try and get over the top. So there we have a nice big hole to put our zombies in. Again, let's just run this and have a look. Well, I'm going to fall into the cube. There we go. So I've located inside our zombie pit as such. We can, of course, make it look more attractive, but for the moment we're simply looking at functionality. To add zombies into our pit, we use entities. There's different types of entities, but in this case we're after an entity that spawns zombies. So let's click our entity tool and we want to add an entity. First thing you'll notice is that obviously there's a color change to show yellow, and that is an add entity cube. And it's important to note that each color represents a different mode, so you can easily find out what mode you're in by the color. One thing you will also notice is that we have another selection down here that allows you to select the entity type. In this case, you see the player spawn point has been selected, but using the mouse wheel to go up, we can select the mob spawn point. The next thing to notice is that let's go ahead and position a couple of zombies. And we're going to one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and another one over here. We'll just make sure they're all above the pit, and they are. These little cubes represent zombie spawn points. One thing to note is that you have, as a player, full control over what happens in spawning, and this is where we kind of get into the scripting side of things. You'll notice that under Entity and also voxels and trigger zones is the ability to edit the scripts that each one of these wee cubes contain. If I click on this cube, you'll see there's a bit of JavaScript in here, and this really just decides how the zombie will spawn. And it's essentially creating an object using the inbuilt type mob spawn entity, and then registering it with Cubiverse. So what we're doing here is saying, here's our object, and whenever this zombie spawn entity, this wee cube, the yellow cube, when it becomes into existence, this code's going to run, and at the end we're going to register with Cubiverse our object to say spawn. Again, I suppose I should just show you that we have a full API by clicking on this link. In this case, let's actually have a look at that and look at our mob spawn entity. And you'll see here it has obviously the information on how to spawn zombies and also on events that occur. Okay, let's close that. Okay, let's run our world and see some zombies. So our little pit is down here, and once the zombies start becoming active, they will get into our little box. And if we drop down here, you'll see them immediately start to attack. And as soon as my health hits 0, I will die. But guess what happens when I respawn? I respawn far away. Now, why is that? Well, it's down to how the tutorial works. So remember, we came from a tutorial map, and in that tutorial map there will be a spawn point, and here it is. So this spawn point was created as part of the tutorial, but it's completely the wrong location. It was fine for the tutorial because you landed on the island, but here it's too far away. So we're going to select it, and that's this tool here, or pressing 3. And it allows us then to select the entity and click it and change its position. But we're still too far away. So we're going to hold down left mouse button to select it, and then we're going to move. And we're actually going to do what we did before, and we're simply going to fly over here. You can see the cube is roughly following us down below because I'm holding down the left mouse button. You can see it's still in the same position. So let's just position it there. And let's use the first play that actually respawns us correctly to see, do we spawn on top? And we do, and there we go. So it's in the correct location. Next thing we want to do is actually spawn a gun, because we want to go and kill these zombies within the pit. Back into editor mode, and this time we need to create a different type of entity. In this case, we want to go in and add another entity, get our yellow cube. But instead of selecting a mob spawn point, we're going to use the mouse wheel and go up to select a generic script entity. So this is a generic script that you can put anything you want in. It's just JavaScript that can talk to Cubiverse. And we're going to pop it down here. We're going to go into our script editor and highlight it. First thing you'll notice, there's no script. It's blank canvas allowing you to add whatever you wish. So let's spawn a gun within the world. Into our tutorial, if we just go back to our main menu, we can go into world and notice that it has a spawn item method. Okay, so let's click on this and it explains how that you can spawn various items in the world, and in this case we want to spawn a pistol. Let's just take our example code here and copy it out. We're going to paste it in here and we're going to change this to the actual pistol gun. And we're going to actually rename it correctly, give it a proper variable. And one thing we need to do as part of this API call is provide a position for it to spawn. You'll notice at the bottom here that the position of the Cubiverse entity, the generic entity script that we're editing is supplied. So I'm going to use those coordinates as a matter of reference, and save and close the script. Let's run this, and what we're expecting is the zombies to spawn into the pit and a gun to then be spawned by Cubiverse at that location. So let's go ahead and spawn. Oh, look, we have a gun, but it's too low. Let's go back in and quickly fix that issue before we go too much further. Select the edit, go in here, let's make it a unit bigger and save the changes. Let's spawn again and drop down, and there we have our gun and our zombies in the pit. So let's pick up the gun and we equip the gun just as anybody else would, and we'll go down here and shoot some zombies. They're all fairly static at the minute because they've nobody to chase. I'm too far away, but let's just kill this one here. Oh, he's dead and floats away. If we were to drop down here, you'll see they all come alive and start attacking me. But too many. There we go. We've killed all the zombies. Well, that brings us to the end of part 1 in our zombie pit tutorial. In the next video, I hope to go in to show how to do a bit more editing of the landscape, to add in some trigger zones for spawning things, and just make the world come alive a bit more with some of the cool features that are in Cubiverse. Thanks for watching, and check out the channel for all the latest videos and part 2.